Kobold Press is returning to the frozen reaches of Midgard with two new 5.5e Northlands books, the Northlands Worldbook and the Northlands Sagas. The Worldbook is the setting and rules toolkit. It gives you the people, places, monsters, factions, magic, ships, and character options that you need to bring this Viking-inspired setting to your table. It's built for 5.5e and draws on Norse mythology, northern folklore, sea raiding sagas, giant haunted wildernesses, rune magic, and the looming shadow of Ragnarok. It's meant to be setting agnostic, so you can use it in the Kobold Press Midgard setting, or you can make it a standalone location, or transfer it to the Forgotten Realms, wherever you like. Then the Northlands Sagas books is the adventure side of the line, a campaign where you're attempting to stop Ragnarok from occurring. So the World Book talks about what the Northlands are, and Sagas gives you stories to play there. Together, these books are Kobold Press's big, icy, axe-swinging invitation to take your campaign into a world of dragon ships and Old Norse gods and impending heroic doom. So if that sounds like something that would suit your table, sit back and let me tell you more about these books and what they have to offer, and if they're bringing new experiences to your table or if they're just more of the same. So with thanks to Kobold Press for providing these to me for review, let's check out Northlands. Enhance and improve your 5e games today with Hit Point Press. Explore the whimsical dark carnival setting of Heckna. Will you see through the glitzy charade or fall prey to Heckna's everlasting torment? Or enhance your 5e games with animated spell, condition, and townsfolk cards. Add a slew of creative and gorgeously illustrated magical items with the Griffin Saddlebag. And meet 25 fully realized villains, or become the big bad yourself. Big Bad's Most Wanted is on Kickstarter. Learn more today at Hit Point Press by using our link in the corner or down below. Let's start with the World Book. First of all, there are two versions available. The 5e version is designed for the current official Dungeons & Dragons rules, 5.5e or the 2024 revision or whatever the hell we're calling it this week. You also have the Tales of the Valiant version, which is Kobold Press's own 5e compatible RPG that was born out of the D&D OGL controversy a couple years back. It feels very much like basic 5e, but it uses Kobold Press's Black Flag rules with its own character building pieces and mechanics like luck and talents. So be mindful about which version you order. The hardcover book here is just under 300 pages. It'll be your main setting and rules book. It gives you the region itself, along with new player options, including 8 subclasses and 5 species like Giantkin and Bearfolk. It also adds around 50 monsters, 9 factions, and 80 plus weapons and spells and magic items, plus rules for sailing and ship combat and rune magic and fate and reputation. Basically, this is the book for building characters from the Northlands, running campaigns there, and dropping Norse-inspired legends and monsters and locations into your stories. So let's talk about those player options first, because I know that's a big selling point, starting with the subclasses. The Path of the Titan Barbarian channels the raw might of the giants. When they rage, they can grow to large size, hit harder, carry more, and gain advantage on strength checks and saves. As they level up, they can trample through smaller foes, improve their brutal strikes, and eventually grow to huge size. The Skald Bard is the battle poet and saga keeper, built around using words to provoke and inspire and shape the story of a fight. They get sharper tools for vicious mockery, they can use performance to sway or antagonize others, and they can pick up martial training so they feel at home beside a warrior. As they level up, they can gain basic bardic inspiration for effects like scorn and eloquence and vitality, and eventually they can recite powerful battle sagas that bolster their allies with tremendous endurance. The Northbound Cleric is a fate weaver devoted to the Norns, using divine powers to pull at the threads of destiny. Their core feature lets them roll and save Skyne dice after a long rest, and then they can later add or subtract those results from their attacks, saves, ability checks, or damage rolls. They can also use Channel Divinity to give nearby allies advantage on attacks and saving throws, and later twist the fates of two creatures together, harming one while healing the other or protecting it. The Circle of Fenris Druid is a savage wolf-themed druid devoted to the Great Wolf, blending primal magic with predatory ferocity. Instead of just turning into animals, they can spend wild shape to manifest these big spectral wolf heads, gaining a bonus to strength-based checks and saves, and replacing one of their melee attacks with a force damage wolf bite. As they level up, their mantle improves with dark vision and extra speed and object-breaking power, and the ability to defend allies by summoning a phantom wolf to maul their attackers. Eventually, you can call on a Fenriken companion, which is like a winter wolf. The Viking Fighter is your Sea Raider and your battlefield bruiser built for aggressive mobile combat. They're especially comfortable aboard ships, as you might imagine, gaining benefits against being knocked down or shoved around, and they gain extra punch from classic Northlands weapons like battle axes and long swords and spears and great axes. And as they level up, they can charge across the battlefield, they can adapt to harsh northern threats like the dragons or the cold or the giants or just swimming in the frigid water, and eventually they can punish their enemies with brutal counterattacks and sweeping assaults. The Oath of Valhalla Paladin is a holy warrior devoted to honoring the worthy dead and proving themselves through courage in battle. Their features lean into thunderous smites and protecting fallen heroes and punishing anyone who twists death into undeath. They can empower their allies after using Divine Smite, they can guard creatures that are near death, they can gain thunder-themed aura benefits, and eventually they can take on a Valkyrie-like blessing with flight and magical resistance. Now, the Spirit Caller Sorcerer is an Ancestor-themed sorcerer who channels the wisdom and the power of the honored dead. At lower levels, they gain occult know-how, they can lean on their spirits for guidance or skill checks, and they can call up spirit auras that either unsettle their enemies or they can bolster their allies. And later on, those spirits can reveal hidden knowledge, and they can let the sorcerer reroll failed checks and attacks and saves. It's kind of a support and control subclass that's really deeply tied to that ancestral magical theme. And finally, my favorite class, the Warlock, you get the Trickster Warlock, which is a reality-bending chaos subclass built around deception and illusion and making the battlefield just annoying for all your enemies. Its features let you swap positions with other creatures, you can punish enemies who fail to see through your illusions, and you can eventually just declare these bizarre changes to reality that your enemies will actually believe if they fail their saves. And when that happens, their luck turns horrible while you and your allies get the upper hand. Now, for new playable species, you get the Bearfolk, the Beastkin, the Giantkin, the Trollkin, the Werekin, and some new twists on dwarves and elves that will fit the setting a little bit better. Each one features several ancestries to further differentiate yourself. So, for example, the Giantkin can choose what type of dragon giant they're descended from, which gives them certain mechanical abilities. And there's also just a whole host of new feats and backgrounds. So let's talk about the setting in general. The Northlands Worldbook presents a land very much inspired, if you haven't guessed it by now, by Norse mythology and skaldic sagas and poetic eddas and Viking-era culture. This is a world of fjords and tundra and black pine forests and frozen mountains, long winters, midnight suns, and boreal darkness. Nature itself is one of the biggest dangers on this setting. The blizzards can isolate towns for months. Travel without food or shelter can become just as threatening as any monster, and the landscape is beautiful in a way that always feels just a little bit lethal. So if you like the survival aspects of RPGs, I think you're going to enjoy this. But the Northlands isn't just a shallow kind of fantasy Viking thing like you might see in Disney World. The book spends a lot of time showing you how the people live in this world and what they value and what drives them. So things like honor and reputation and loyalty and hospitality and courage and oath-keeping are very much woven into the culture. So a Northlander's name and their deeds matter because they are what survive after death. And raiding isn't treated as simple villainy here, but as part of a larger social fabric that's shaped by survival and scarcity and glory and clan loyalty. So that gives the setting a very strong moral texture, and characters may be brutal and generous, and heroic and vengeful, and deeply principled and wildly dangerous all at once. So it allows players to explore heroic characters that are more textured than usual, more gray than usual, and ones who might not be seen as so heroic if they were dropped into a different time or place. So that's kind of fun, I think. One of the big themes here of the setting is fate. The Northlands are a place where prophecy is real, and the gods meddle openly. I like that too. But this doesn't mean characters are passive. Instead, the drama comes from how they meet their fate. Do they earn glory along the way? Do they die well? Do they defy expectations through bravery, luck, and reputation? Seers, omens, runes, and prophecy all play an important part, giving the setting a mythic feel without actually taking agency away from the players. The book also gives GMs a lot of cultural tools to build adventures around, which really help you ground your story in a place that feels real and alive. You get details on feasting and hospitality, the duels, the feuds, war guild, barter, social rank, jarls, and raiders and skalds and law speakers. And you learn cool new vocabulary words like war guild. I'm going to be really impressed if the caption software gets that one right below me. War guild. War guild. I'm not going to correct it. It's just what it is. War guild. You can let me know. A campaign here can revolve around a broken oath, or a disputed inheritance, or a blood feud, or a prophetic warning, or a dangerous winter journey, maybe a sacred gathering or a feast where one insult pushes two clans to the edge of war. And layered over all of this is the supernatural, meddling gods and ancient giant magic and forgotten runes and borrow haunting undead and monsters in the forest and old powers buried beneath the ice. You end up getting about 20 pages of general setting information in the book, about 45 pages detailing the various regions of the setting, 22 more pages talking about the factions in the north. For each faction, you get status levels based on your reputation with them, from negative to positive, plus key locations and NPCs, adventure hooks, and guidance on tying them to your campaigns. Some of them even have layer maps, so a lot of the campaigning here is going to revolve around those factions. Plus, you get about 40 pages of new enemies and NPCs, which are all fully illustrated. You can see some of them here as I flip through. The book also gives you some light rules for items that can make your campaign feel more thematic, so things like skis, dog sleds, and new mounts suitable to the region, like mammoths and moose, and even sea serpents. They also provide stat blocks for quite a few different types of longship, and then a bunch of new spells and magical items too. This book is great! I don't think I get a lot of pushback in saying that Kobold Press is the premier source for third-party D&D content. The quality of the book itself is top-notch, with the layout, the formatting, the graphic design. They're all pretty much equal to what you would see in a first-party D&D book. The art is also fantastic, and the amount of art is impressive as well. Aside from the sections that list a bunch of spells and feats, you're going to find at least one piece of art on almost every two-page spread. And then the quality of the content is also great. The writing is sharp and flavorful and respectful and mature, and there's purpose behind everything. When you get a history or a description of a location, it's all tied to how you can tell a story in that place and time. There are so many stories in here that are all teed up, ready for you to explore them. And then the player options are robust without feeling overly complicated. I didn't talk too much about the monsters, but they each do a great job of doing something that will make your players have to adjust their usual strategies in combat, again, without putting too much overhead on the game master. In one of the adventures that I wrote back in the day, I had a stat block that combines a beholder with an elder brain, and that was one of the kind of borderline nightmare monsters for a GM to run, and I'm very happy that this book here avoids that particular trap. So yeah, the World Book is fantastic, but let's move on to the Northlands Sagas book. If you're like me and you want to play D&D, but you don't necessarily have the time or the spare brain capacity to write up your own campaigns, adventure books are where it's at. Sagas gives you a campaign of 11 connected adventures divided into 4 acts, and they take you from levels 1 all the way up to 13 at the end. While they do tell a cohesive story, each adventure is standalone, so it can be run by itself. You will need the Worldbook to run Sagas, as well as the usual D&D or Tales of the Valiant source books. We are going to do a spoiler-filled review here now, so if you want to be a player in a Northlands adventure, this might be the time to skip ahead using that segmented timeline down below me. The campaign is about stopping Ragnarok from arriving early. The gods know Ragnarok is eventually coming, but a cult has started spreading rumors and false prophecies that the end times are already here. At first, it was partly manipulated by Loki, who wanted to stir the pot in his own little chaotic, neutral kind of way. But because Loki is gonna Loki, the situation has gotten completely out of hand. The cult of Ragnarok has allied with giants and other darker powers, and now they're going to try to free Fenris the Great Wolf and unleash him on Asgard before the proper time. The campaign begins with the characters being drawn into Loki's schemes. Early adventures have them chasing a thief into an ancestral burrow, rescuing one of Loki's Ratatosk agents from ogres, traveling to Yggdrasil itself, meeting the Norns at the Well of Erd, and defending a coastal village from cultists and giants. The first act is basically the heroes discovering that they have been pulled into a much larger destiny, and the cult's plans are not just apocalyptic panic, they might actually result in something really, really bad. The middle part of the campaign becomes a race to gather allies and learn where the cult is hiding. The party travels to Skaldholm to win the aid of powerful Skalds. They visit a flying cloud giant city that is being sabotaged from within. They journey to the Isle of Loki to consult a magical artifact known as the Loom of Fables. And along the way, the adventure mixes diplomacy, investigation, travel, competitions, dungeon delving, of course, and big old set-piece fights, including a confrontation with the dragon Fafnir. The third act is where the heroes really go on the offensive. They attend a giant moot and have to solve a murder before they can win support against the cult. More on that one in just a second. Then they lead an assault on the cult's hidden fortress, battling through a besieged castle and confronting the cult's leaders. But even after the cult is dealt a major blow, the real threat slips away. The main villains reach the den of Fenris and complete enough of the ritual to free the Great Wolf. And at this point, the campaign shifts from stopping the cult to, oh boy, Ragnarok is actually happening. The finale will take the characters to Asgard itself. The gods' realm is under attack, and the divine forces are scattered, and Fenris the wolf is loose. The heroes sail there on a magical longship. Of course, they fight their way through the giant forces, they rescue or rally the gods, and ultimately they face the big bad and his allies while trying to rechain Fenris before he destroys Asgard and the rest of the world. It is certainly an adventure that's pretty much on rails. While actions can ripple through what happens later on in the adventure, there really aren't exactly branching paths. And while some of the individual adventures can be a little bit sandboxy, on the whole, it's a straightforward story. But there is the opportunity between adventures for the party to explore some of the material in the world book if you want to let them off the leash for a little bit. Now, one of the signature pieces of the Northlands Saga book is the runestone system. Early in the adventure path, each character receives a runestone from Loki. These are little small stones carved with ancient runes that suggest that the Norns have marked these heroes for something important. Mechanically, each player gets one runestone, usually chosen at random, at the start of the campaign, and each stone is tied to one of the gods of the Northlands, and each one has its own theme and abilities. Heimdall's rune focuses on awareness and danger avoidance. Wotan's is on inspiration and knowledge. Thor's is on lightning and battle, of course. You get the idea. There are 12 in total, and they each give a character a mythic little power that will grow along with them. There's also a rune card deck available as an accessory if you want it. I don't have the deck, but I assume that you won't be constantly drawing from it during play. Instead, at the start of the campaign, at the saga, each character is going to draw one of the runes, and then that rune becomes part of their character's destiny for the entire campaign. And as the campaign progresses, the runestones will get stronger. So the book ties these advancements to specific adventures, so the stones evolve at the big dramatic moments. And that gives the whole adventure path a nice little sense of progression beyond just leveling up. And the players can be handed the next card in the series as they unlock those new abilities if you're using that little rune deck. What's especially cool is that the runestones aren't just random bonuses, they're also connecting the characters to the gods in the final act of the campaign. The god linked to a character's runestone can matter later on, especially in the Ashes of Asgard adventure at the end, where the heroes may be fighting alongside or rescuing their divine patrons. So a player who drew Thor's rune, or Loki's or Baldur's, may feel a more personal connection when those gods enter the story directly later on. Now, I love when an adventure gives players a unique challenge or gameplay opportunity. We're all used to dungeon delves, and this book still has plenty of those, don't worry, but you also have other sorts of major encounters. In the fourth adventure, you have a village defense set piece, where the characters arrive just before the Cult of Ragnarok and its giant allies attack, giving them about a day to prepare fortifications, uncover possible traitors, organize defenders, and protect a magical longship being launched from the village. It's all about resource collection and allocation, and you even get a little sheet that will help the game master keep track of all of it. And once the assault begins, it shifts into a streamlined, large-scale combat system where the players command the forces across the various zones of the map while also using their own unique abilities to turn the tide. Then, in another adventure, you have a murder mystery at a pivotal giant moot. This one has a little bit of shades of the Tainted Cup novel, if you've read that. The characters will travel to a fortress carved into a titanic stone hand, and they sit in informal debates between rival giant factions, and they make arguments against an alliance with the Doomsday Cult, and they navigate banquets, and the side conversations to try to figure out what each giant really wants. And they try to win them over as these delegates, and these delegates can barely tolerate the small folk, but they're trying. And then when the High Speaker is murdered, the adventure turns into a locked room style investigation, and the players have to clear their own names, and they have to question giant suspects, and they have to inspect the corpse, and they have to search these enormous giant chambers and interpret strange biological clues, that Tainted Cup thing I mentioned earlier. They have to uncover hidden passages, track suspicious objects, and expose the real culprit before the moot collapses into violence. It's really fun stuff. I really like the way the adventures are presented here. A lot of adventures can be tough to run in the moment. Being able to kind of scan a page to make sure that you are presented with all the information you need to present, then you find the relevant information when a player asks you a question. All that's really important is finding stuff in the moment. And that's where D&D, in my opinion, generally surpasses Pathfinder. Pathfinder adventures are dense, and they can be really hard to scan in the moment, at least for me. So this book makes good use of spacing and bullet points and bolding and headers and shaded text boxes so you can find what you need when you need it. It also does a good job of not making you do heavy lifting as a GM. Pretty much everything you need is there for you, ready to go, including a good bit of flavor text to read. There are also digital handouts for the players that you can access through a QR code in the book. Unfortunately, the code didn't seem to be working for me in the moment when I was checking it earlier, but that might be because I kind of got my copy a little bit early, I think, but hopefully that will go live soon. I'm sure you can find it on their website. The maps in the book are pretty great too. I do wish that the adventures released alongside like a map pack that you can buy as a standard practice for all the books from all the companies, because that would certainly make things easier for me if you could just get a digital map pack. D&D did that for a little while. Of course, if you are playing the digital version, that's not going to be a problem for you. Both of these books will eventually be available on D&D Beyond and Foundry, Roll20, and Shard. But overall, this is a solid campaign with a pretty rigid structure. Your players are probably going to notice that they finished one adventure and they are on to the next, kind of gamified. So it may not feel as organic as the adventures that they might be used to, but they won't be stuck doing any one thing for a prolonged period of time. Each time they show up to the table, they're probably going to be having different experiences, which keeps things fresh and interesting. So if the subject matter and the tone and the structure and the setting excite you, I think you're going to have a good time with Northlands Sagas. Northlands Worldbook and Sagas are both available nowish. For the Worldbook, you can get the 5.5e or the Tales of the Valiant edition. The PDF is $30, the hardcover is $50, and the bundle is $60. Sagas will run you $25 for the PDF, $40 for the hardcover, and $50 for the bundle. As of this recording, the VTT editions aren't out just yet, so I don't have those prices for you, but I believe they should be launching really soon, if they haven't already by the time you're seeing this. So let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. I do have some more Kobold Press books that I want to cover, so stay tuned for those. We also have some new WizKids products that are headed our way. You probably have seeing those before you see this, so I'm very excited to share that with you. And we'll have more coverage of the Arc Villain Encounters Adventure in a Box Game Found campaign, which is going to be really fun. I don't know when all these are releasing, but you're going to see a lot of videos from me over the next week or two. If you haven't seen any of these videos, I recommend checking them out. Hit Point Press is also still running their big bundle sale on Fool's Gold and Heckna minis, so if you're interested in running those adventures, now's the time to check out those minis. And that's it for me today. So for now, please stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I'll see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.